So before they start out, they should be starting pretty soon. Let's get into some of the more basic tech of this. They're going to start off in a prologue, and really on this one, you're just going to see him climb and you're going to see him jump. Uh, they're going to try to walk as little as possible because, for whatever reason, jumping is actually faster than walking in this game. One way that you'll be able to notice is give it a little bit of time, and they're going to be going across a bridge. It's supposed to sync up with the music, but as they're hopping, they're actually going to be ahead of where that music is supposed to be. So just some basic tech that they're doing right here, and then they're going to do probably the main piece of tech for this game, and that's the dash.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, most of the reason that this sort of bunny hopping here works is because the bunny hop is basically meant to preserve speed that comes from hyper dashing, which we'll get to in just a little moment here.
Yeah, perfect. No deaths on the prologue. Doesn't happen often, but happens often enough. And in a race, that's last thing you want to see. So good thing that both of our runners had a good prologue, and we're pretty much synced here, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's weird. You can definitely just miss the point where you're able to dash and just die on the bridge, and that's definitely not ideal. So we're getting here into the first chapter, and GrosHiken is off to the races already. She is not far behind.
So this is a wall bounce there. You're going to see often, so they're going to dash up and then against the wall. That's called a wall bounce. That's going to be able to get you more momentum as you're going forward instead of doing just a basic climb up there. Shuyaz right now looking like he's having a little bit of slowdown right there. Definitely showing that he's not as experienced of a runner necessarily as a Gros there, but he's
there's also tournament nerves playing into this.
Oh, definitely, and for both of them, I'm sure that's going to be the case.
So what you'll notice is, among the other things, besides wall bouncing, they are effectively dashing downward and forward into the ground and then jumping, which effectively preserves that momentum from the dash. We usually call those a hyper dash. Without the downward input, if you just dash and then jump, that's a dash jump, which will give you a little bit more height but not quite as much speed. For some of those, it's definitely important that you keep your boost going on from there. But both of them already out of Forsaken City, going to Old Site. These first few chapters, very quick. Yep. So GrosHiken is going to be just shortly revealing the first, one of the first major. Well, we did already cover zippers, but we're going to be seeing, honestly, one of my favorite mechanics in the game, the dream blocks. Ooh, picks up a death there. That one's kind of hard to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these dream blocks, basically, when you dash into them, that dash will carry through the dream block out to the other side, and it will give your dash back. The one thing to be careful about, however, is that if you were to dash in through a dream block into a wall, it just kills you.
Yeah, and this here right there saw Shuyaz going through what I think is one of the tougher parts of that, just getting it with ease. Right now, he's definitely, like I said before, an underdog here, but what I appreciate seeing him right now is he definitely has all of the tech to be sort of a sub 40 runner, but just needs to really just get all of it down, because right now you can just see, watching him, he's a little bit behind, but definitely has all the pieces there. So as long as he can sort of keep it up, and he might be able to make a comeback here, but if you look at the other side of there, GrosHiken, already over here, one of the longest screens of this level right here, just moving across. Ooh, tough death there.
Ooh, GrosHiken runs into a little bit of trouble, and oh, that's a big time loss. He misses the key.
Rough. So now we got a very close race right here. It's only a few seconds off right now. Might even be closer depending on right now what their in-game time is. The important thing with this race to remember is, while we're looking at this in the real time is somewhat important, we're going based off of in-game time. We don't want the runners, they're not going to be stalling, they're not going to do anything in this race, but at the same time, it's the in-game time is what matters. So if you're going to try to see who's ahead, make sure to look at that in the top corner of the game, more so than the real time.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit confusing, but with these runners doing the menuing between chapters more or less as quickly as possible, it should sync up pretty nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't expect, much waiting or stalling in there. They're going to want to get through this as soon as possible, put on a good show.
Yep. So we have
Shuyaz.
GrosHiken. Oh, we have GrosHiken going into Chapter 3. Chapter 3 introduces a new hazard, which... Can you remind me what those are called?
Those are called dust bunnies, or at least that's
Bunnies.
what I... Yeah. Those ones, they're a major pain. Generally, they're cycle-based, so once you get good, start going fast, they're not as much of an issue, but definitely for casual play and getting to learn it, they can be a bit of an issue as GrosHiken takes a couple deaths there. Ooh. Screen's not teaching him or treating him well right now.
Ooh, dear. Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind is that GrosHiken's having some trouble with is that the cycles that a lot of these stage hazards have will be different will differ between when you just first enter the room and when you respawn in the room after dying. So a lot of these cases, some runners may just almost never die in a certain room. So on those few situations that they do die, they're not used to the death cycle, which can result in more deaths, and that's something that we saw happen to GrosHiken there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at the time right now, GrosHiken still has that lead, but it's only down to a few seconds right now. So they both get cleanly out of this room right here. They get all those keys cleanly.
Yeah, one thing that you might see as a bit of a difference between Celeste and some other speed games is that time saves and losses in this game are, for the most part, pretty small. Even the biggest ones can be maybe about a half minute at most, just because of how stratified these rooms are. So definitely in that regard, well, on the other hand, the time opportunities to save and lose time are aplenty. So we might just see, depending on later matchups in the race, we might see the lead getting traded back and forth quite frequently.
Absolutely. And one way you can just see how GrosHiken he's one of the top runners in this, is how fast he got through that I'm not sure what the name of that room is, library, whatever room that...
I believe we call that the huge mess.
Yeah, the huge mess. He got through that very quickly, and shuyaz definitely got through it well enough, but when you're somebody who's experienced this GrosHiken there, he's gonna fly through that, and that's exactly what he showed.
Now, GrosHiken already did this. What we see shuyaz doing right there is a bit of a weird little technical thing. So it would be naive to say that shuyaz had just jumped off of the spike. In fact, you cannot jump off of spikes. What's more or less happening is that he's jumping off of a very small gap in the wall where there isn't any spike. And the other matter is that if your momentum is away from spikes, even if you're right against them, they will not kill you. So taking advantage of that can save you a few seconds in that room.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some riskier ones, especially when we get to longer levels. The segments here in the hotel, a lot smaller than the ones that we'll see later on. So definitely then you'll see some spike jumps that are a little bit riskier than these rooms.
Chapter 3 is probably one of the biggest indicators, just because of how much the dust bunnies move around, of how different cycles can be between death cycles and entrance cycles. And one thing that's nice that should be noted is that if you just really don't like a death cycle, what you can do is you can leave and re-enter a room. In most situations, sometimes the door just closes behind you and oh dear.
All right, so we see shuyaz there. He's got the key, and he's going to move forward to try to catch back up there to GrosHiken, he's getting pretty close to getting to one of the more interesting parts of the game.
Yeah,
definitely.
He's got a couple of long rooms to deal with here just before he gets to that, though.
There he goes, and right there, doing a reset, taking sort of an intended death right there. Once you grab the key, you can just press reset, brings you back to the beginning of the room, saves a lot of time for that one. Pretty simple strategy, but if you don't know about it.
Yeah, it's something that you kind of just have to know about it. it's a part of the game that you kind of have to know about, and is a lot more prevalent in the All Red Berries run. But we do see it used a couple of times in any percent. That one being the first. Here we get to the Oshiro segment. This is where Mr. Oshiro gets really, really angry at you.
And
Yep.
At
Go
least
on.
casually, definitely hardest part of this game, or one of the hardest part of this game is him. Just his cycles seem to be very difficult to master, but once you get these cycles down, you'll see that they'll get through a lot of these rooms without Oshiro even dashing or getting close to them.
Yeah.
So it's really, you can just tell the mastery that they have over these levels, just based off of how they're reacting to Oshiro, how Oshiro's moving and dashing towards them. As GrosHiken finishes that level, Oshiro not a problem at all for him. And Shuya's not far behind, so we got a really good race after the first 3 chapters.
That Chapter 3 chase scene definitely comes down to muscle memory, as do a lot of things in less, but I think that one in particular is what's going to save you from having a really bad time in that room.
Absolutely.
In that section.
And with most cycle-based things in speedruns, if you're off by just a little bit, it can completely ruin you. So not only is it important to remember exactly what the strat is, you have to know exactly how to react if you do have a slight mistake there.
Yep, and we have Chapter 4 coming up. Chapter 4 is going to introduce wind.
Definitely a lot of people's favorite part, wind.
Yeah. Wind is about as simple as it sounds. It's either going to push you toward or away from where you want to go. I don't believe there's any vertical wind in Chapter 4. It's just horizontal in this case. That one's a pretty tricky skid that GrosHiken just did. Normally, casually, you'd want to go up and over that spike wall, but if you have the right timing, you can go back underneath it. Shuya's just about finishing up Chapter 3, and there he goes. Okay, so it's going to take a couple of times, but there we go. We have a little set of wall bounces. GrosHiken's probably going to go for a little bit of an auto-scroller skip, which auto-scroller, kind of a weird way to put it, but those motion blocks do create a bit of an auto-scroller when you have to wait for them to get to certain points to progress in the game.
Absolutely. Just not much you can do in terms of making it faster. You just got to go along with what the game told you to do.
Well, yes, to an extent, however. There are situations where you can just move on ahead of the block and not even worry about it anymore. Ooh, that's a close call from GrosHiken, but he manages to get through that alive. Ooh! He may have accidentally corner boosted. Yeah, we can see Shuya is opting to go up and over the wall. Definitely a safe choice. In general, Shuya's might be looking for the sort of safer strategies to, maybe go for a bit of a slow and steady wins the race situation. Hoping for GrosHiken to get a little bit in over his head and mess up some key things. But we can see that the gap is starting to widen. GrosHiken's doing pretty great with this chapter so far.
Oh yeah, he is. He's just moving along at a great pace right now. And one thing with Shuyaz that I did appreciate seeing him early on, because he was a little bit of an unknown going into this, didn't have a PB up on speedruns.com before this started. Looking at his match before, he did go for a lot of different strategies. I believe he went for door skip. I think he got that first try. So he's not a stranger to any sort of risky strategies, but definitely playing it safe a little bit, which is probably the smarter move when you're going up against one of the top runners in the game.
That's certainly true. GrosHiken coming up on the last screen. The wind kind of changes directions on you, but that's not going to be any problem for him as he finishes up Chapter 4.
Yeah, and an absolutely great Chapter 4 for him there. Really widened that lead quite a bit there. Shuyaz definitely can catch up there, especially with how tough the final few chapters can be. But pretty dominating lead right now.
As GrosHiken goes into Chapter 5, we're going to get introduced with yet some more mechanics. Starting with those blocks that jolt in a set direction as you dash. And then we have these red bubbles that are similar to those blue bubbles that shuyaz is using right now, except that the red bubbles will continue moving into a direction until it collides with something or you dash out of it. GrosHiken's going to be coming up on either a small skip or a major skip, depending on what he decides to go with. I would guess he's not going to go for double bubble skip, but then again, what do I know? Nope, he's not going for it.
He did not.
He's gonna play it safe, but honestly, more power to him.
Now, definitely probably the smarter strategy for a race setting. Moving cleanly right now through Mirror Temple.
shuyaz is having a bit of trouble with those wave bounces, but he gets through that cleanly.
Yeah, shuyaz getting towards the end right now of Chapter 4. So hopefully right now, just as long as he just continues to go at a good pace as he finishes that up, we could possibly see a comeback. But if we look back at GrosHiken, he's got a new enemy and that is going to play a big part of the second half of Mirror Temple. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so these are the Seekers. The Seekers will, as they see you, they will start moving towards you, maybe a little bit kind of like Oshiro. One thing that we didn't see in the Oshiro segment is that you can actually bounce on top of Oshiro's head, and the same thing rings true for these Seekers. That's going to be a lot more prevalent in this part of the run. And here we see the first one showing up. That one's not going to be very relevant to us because it doesn't actually see Madeline. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Seekers can activate those key switches, which is definitely something that runners will be using to their advantage. We see another example of that where GrosHiken kind of waits just a moment. Oh, that's a really good... Wow, this is a really good room for him. Where he waits just a little bit for the Seeker to come lunging at him. Oh, careful. And he's got it. shuyaz moving along quite nicely. As much as he is far behind, this is definitely still a respectable pace for a runner.
It definitely is. He still has a great chance on being able to get close to where he got in his previous race, which I believe, again, was about 42 minutes.
Ooh. Plays that safe. I honestly hadn't even thought of that. Unfortunately, runs right into those gears. That's really hard to avoid if you don't know the patterns very well. And if anything throws you off, then you kind of have to play it by ear.
Absolutely. And this entire level, very cycle-based. You have to know exactly how it goes, as GrosHiken here is going to the Theo part of this level, which is very important. Everything's sort of on a cycle. You're trying to get past the Seekers. You're trying to do it as quickly as possible with Theo.
The main thing to be aware of is that you cannot dash while carrying Theo. Did that just bounce off of that top wall? That was weird.
Yes, it was. I have not seen that one before.
Runners will basically be employing a mechanic where they will throw Theo, dash into, and then re-grab Theo right there. Usually that dash will be a hyper dash. Ooh. Having a bit of a hiccup there with that room. Oh, but here comes the... Oh! Doesn't quite get the momentum, but that's alright. I'd say GrosHiken is playing this stage actually rather steadily. I think he's starting to take note of how much of a lead he has and just working to preserve it and not do much, stupid stuff.
Absolutely. It was very clean going through all of that section. Nothing insanely quick, but definitely a good pace there.
And that will do it for Chapter 5 for GrosHiken.
And one thing to note as well as we're watching this, GrosHiken has a good lead. It's important for each of these runners, even winning or losing these races, to go as quickly as they can. Once you go past, right now we're in the group section of it, but we will eventually get to the bracket part of the match, and those are going to be seeded by the average of each of your races. So each race matters. You want to get as fast a time as possible. That way you're not, having to go against top runners when you're going in your first or second round of play.
Yeah, the faster you go now, the easier of a time you'll have in the bracket. Shuyaz making his way through the search section of Chapter 5, running into a bit of trouble with this room. I can't blame him. It's pretty hard.
Yeah, all of these Seeker ones are very difficult, at least casually. Once you get there and start speedrunning it, it gets easier when you know the cycles, but at the same time, it's never a cakewalk. It's always, you mess up that cycle once, you gotta sort of pay the price.
Yeah, the biggest trouble with the Seekers is that until you are able to effectively manipulate the Seekers all the time, their behavior can just seem completely erratic, and that can be hard to work with. Now, we didn't quite get to mention this on GrosHiken's screen, but what you saw on Shuyaz's screen is a skip using a reverse hyper, where you dash downward and back and then jump forward. And that skip right there is developer intended.
And I believe that skip, that saves at least a couple. I'm not actually sure the timing of it, but it saves a great deal of time on that.
It saves a great deal of time, because that's a lot of time that you don't have to spend going through that bit of an open world area, unlocking blocks to move the red bubble through.
And then GrosHiken there deciding to go in the bottom section of this. I know this is part of the run where it really just matters your preference if you go the top route or the bottom route. And I believe we haven't talked about it yet. We have these feathers. These feathers, what a lot of runners will do, playing either, depending if they're playing with the controller, D-pad, or analog, the feathers actually have complete analog movement. So you're just flying around with analog movement, as you see GrosHiken on his screen, grabbing that feather, going across. So a lot of runners who do run D-pad will switch over to that analog stick just specifically to use those feathers, because they need that more precise movement.
Yeah, I did find out a while ago in a casual playthrough that using the D-pad certainly is possible with the feathers. However, I do not recommend it.
Oh, definitely not. So Shuyaz here getting towards the end of the Theo section. Only getting to his last screen here as GrosHiken's moving very quickly through Chapter 6.
Ooh, Shuyaz having a bit of a struggle here, but oh wow. That was at least 5 close calls on Shuyaz's screen, but he managed to get through that room first try, so very well done to him. That's the second time that I've seen Theo get stuck on an upper wall. So GrosHiken's gonna go for a bit of a... Oh, he gets caught by an upper wall.
And here we're gonna go with a very great part of the run, and this is gonna be the battle line section. So she's gonna have a few attacks, either gonna throw some... I don't know what they're... Energy balls? What would those things be called?
Those little energy bullets.
Yep.
She will also occasionally throw lasers at you.
Yeah, definitely a tough section casually, but when you get through this and start to get the optimization here, you'll notice that they're just going through this at a pretty good pace right there.
Shuya is starting to make his way through the first part of Chapter 6. Ooh, that's... having a little bit of trouble with this room. Nerves might be getting to him just a little bit. think there are nerves all around here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you can see in certain situations, especially with the lasers, it looks like they're cutting it really close with, you know, they're just about to get hit by the laser when they hit Battlein. But once you get used to it, you'll find that those aren't, you know, nearly as cutthroat as you'd quite expect. At least not without sufficient practice.
Absolutely.
Well,
As with
sufficient practice, excuse me. And you were saying?
As with most things cycle-based, once you get that cycle, definitely gets a lot easier, but very tight. Similar to, you know, things like Seekers, you just don't want to get off cycle. This one is a bit more generous than the Seekers, but at the same time, you just want to make sure that you're getting your cycles.
And one thing that I want to touch on that GrosHiken has been doing a few times in this fight is that when hyper dashing, he's been jumping just as soon as he hits the ground, just about immediately. So that's the bunny hop mechanic that we were talking about, and that's one of the main reasons that hopping while simply walking is faster than just walking.
Yep, anything to preserve your momentum in this game, anything to make you go faster. Bunny hopping as much as possible, jumping, dashing, name of the game.
GrosHiken getting pretty close to the end of Chapter 6. Just a few more of these pretty tough screens casually.
Definitely. I think the first time I tried to do Battleline, it took... I don't even want to think about it, actually.
I don't want to think about it either.
But just going through this very efficiently, making it look easy. Almost to the end here.
Just about there. And that's going to do it for Chapter 6.
And right now, previously had one jump, and now we're going to get to the very last chapter where GrosHiken here is going to have multiple jumps, which definitely changes how the level design goes going forward to that final chapter.
Chapter 3 is, Chapter 3, the final chapter is quite long. It's going to take about, I'd say, 9 to 10 minutes.
Seems about right.
It's basically a recap of, well, the entire game, except now you have 2 dashes.
Yep, so right now you're going to have, this is sort of Chapter 6, but in a little bit of a different context, and then we're going to go through each of those chapters. Like you said, sort of getting those mechanics, just seeing how they can change that up, except for with 2 dashes instead of the single one. As Shuyaz on the other side here, getting close to getting to that Battleline fight. So it looks like, again, while the race looks like GrosHiken's probably going to take this one, but at the same time, doesn't matter necessarily, or it's not all about winning or losing, because you still need to have that great time to make sure you got that good seed.
She is getting started on the Battleline segment. Off to a pretty decent start. Couple of very nice rooms from Shuyaz. Ooh! Oh, GrosHiken going for a reverse hyper on that zipper. Going for it again.
Ooh!
It's hard. It's hard.
Just one of those. One of the things I appreciate most about these speedruns is just each of these skips just looks so cool, and that's just one of my favorite looking ones of the whole run. Is that one right there?
And honestly, that one looks cool enough that GrosHiken could have gone for other strats. He could have gone for a safer strat, but he kept going for it. He kept going for that one strat because that's what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's faster, but also, you know, you got to have a little bit of swag strats in your run. Come on, doesn't matter. You can take 3 times if it's a better, cooler strat.
GrosHiken moving on to the next section of Chapter 7. Back to these dream blocks. Now, something that I'm not sure if we'll be seeing, we might be seeing a little bit from GrosHiken, is that there are two things that you can do out of dream blocks. You can jump out of them, which the game does teach you to do at a part of the game, but you can also hyper dash out of them. That one's pretty tricky. I'm not sure if we're going to be seeing any of those from GrosHiken, but we just might.
So GrosHiken going a little bit on the other side of what the casual strat is there, taking a top room instead of going through the normal vanilla route. That's going to save a little bit of time there as he's going through this 1,000-meter section incredibly quickly. We see shuyaz on the other side. He's almost done there with battle, and he's got a pretty good pace going on for himself. He actually might be, looking at his time, he's about 28 right now. He might be pretty close to a PB pace on there. Just depends really on how his Chapter 7 ends up.
Yeah, honestly, all bets are off when it comes to Chapter 7.
Oh, definitely.
You could have an amazing first 6 chapters of the game, and if your Chapter 7 isn't so great, you might miss out on a few PBs.
And GrosHiken on the 1,500-meter part, pretty much agreed to be probably the most difficult part of this run. He's going across just doing all of these. But
gosh, does it look cool when you get it right.
Oh gosh, yes it does. He's just making it look easy. Going across, complete efficiency.
Yeah, so what we see him doing in that room in particular, that's pretty clearly seen there, is taking advantage of the fact that dashing downward diagonally actually preserves your momentum, which creates a situation where you can do this thing called the Ultra Dash. It's basically where you do a chain of hyper dash into an airborne down forward dash, which makes you go really fast.
Of course, I can...
Setting up for a wall bounce. It's very tricky. He gets it third try. Very respectable.
Yeah, definitely. Gets that strawberry. We don't see many of those in this run. In fact, that's his first strawberry. But if you can get that that route first try, definitely save some time there. With him missing it a couple times, not necessarily saving any time there, but at the same time, still ahead as shuyaz there. Finishing up that, he's going to go into Chapter 7. He's still on a pretty good pace for himself as well, so I'm sure he'll be pretty happy with this run.
Yeah, this is a
Chapter 7.
Certainly not a pace to sneeze at. GrosHiken going into a pretty tricky room, but if he's going to be showing off a little bit of a skip for this auto-scroller, yep, there we go. That saves maybe a second. Ooh, that's a bit of a tough
death
break
there. And GrosHiken's going here, about to go into, that's 2,000 meters, or is it 2,500 meters? Oh man, I lost track.
He's getting to 2,500.
2,500 meters. While shuyaz on the other side there, he's at 500 meters. He's going on a pretty good pace as well. While again, I don't think that we'll see a comeback necessarily, that pace that he's got looking pretty good. Now, it's definitely some pretty great skips in this section of the map.
Yeah, starting with that one where you basically do that sort of faux spike jump twice in a row. We're also coming up shortly on a skip that I forgot its name. No, I didn't. Ooh, going for a bit of a that's a really small gap.
It's pretty precise, and let's see if he goes. Yep,
Speaking
there we go.
of small gaps, here's the door skip.
Oh, almost first try.
You have to do it twice, but he's going to play it safe this time around.
Probably smart.
I certainly don't blame him.
No, certainly not. Definitely a great skip to go for. at the end of the day, I think it saves like 2 or 3 seconds. Not really a necessary thing to do, but at the same time,
it's a minor time save, but we have come to the point in the run that it's less of a joke skip and more of a skip that you really got to be doing.
absolutely. The top times there, you're really, each screen, you're sort of, if you can get 2 seconds of save, that's more than normal, where you're on a lot of these screens trying to get sort of half seconds.
And here we are in 3000M. Just 28 checkpoints to go and 27, and I'm going to stop counting it down because that's going to be annoying.
Yeah, each of these checkpoints saves your location in the case of a death. However, it's the common strategy to skip at least a few of those, as some of these sections easier than others, as well as some of them are a bit out of the way. So we'll see how many GrosHiken here actually skips on this section.
Yeah, I imagine at his level it's going to be about as many as the top level players, but we might see him settle for 1 or 2 that he would normally skip in, say, PB attempts.
Absolutely. And then Shuyaz here, as still over there on 1500 meters, doing what I think is the most difficult screen, just probably in the game. I might have actually said that when GrosHiken was doing it. Just a difficult room.
Difficult in the any percent run. Let's leave it at that.
Definitely, that is definitely true. Once you start getting to your all red berries, B sides, C sides, definitely. So 13 flags to go.
And 3000M introduces yet another mechanic. The game really doesn't stop throwing new mechanics at you, although this one's a bit of a remix of a previous mechanic. Now we have vertical wind. So now the game is... the game starts by throwing you downwards toward the ground, but now it's carrying you up.
And that allows him to do the skip right there where there's a chunk of spikes that he just jumps directly over.
It makes neutral jumping a lot easier, which neutral jumping isn't something you see very often in the any percent run, but it's basically where you jump off of a wall without any input on your directional pad, which allows you to climb up walls without using any stamina.
All right, just 6 checkpoints to go, and he's done with this race right there. 5, he's going to skip that checkpoint.
Just a few screens left to go, although these last couple ones get pretty long.
Yeah, definitely 2 and 3. Very difficult, pretty easy to die on. But he's going to get through 3 and have 2. One of these 2 is incredibly long, definitely very frustrating. There's been quite a few lost PBs to this room, and he's going to be to the final part. He's at 1.
You certainly still can die on it, especially if you're trying to go as fast as possible. Don't be mistaken about that. But that's going to be time for GrosHiken. He's going to be taking this race with a nice 34:45.
And that's definitely a great run for him. Only about a minute off of his PB. And we have Shuyaz here. He's going through the, I guess, Chapter 4 section here of Chapter 7. I forget. That's 2,000 meters or 2,500 meters.
This would be 2,000 meters.
2,000 meters.
And he's just about wrapping it up, though.
Definitely good pace for him going over here to 2,500 meters at 36 minutes. Definitely pretty good for him. He's got that PB he got earlier today of 42 minutes, so he should be getting somewhere around there, just depending on how these final few sections are going to go for him.
Ooh. He's going for some risky strats. They're not quite similar to what I've seen, but they're definitely interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And oh, he's gonna go for this skip right here. Doesn't get it first try. Let's see if he can get it this next time.
I'm sure he'll get it. It's really hard, but
There it goes.
you got this. And there it is.
And then let's see, we got a couple other nice skips that we might see as well. Let's see what he does.
Perhaps you just can show off door skip.
Let's
As
see
we
again. I'm pretty sure he went for it last time and got it first try, so I'm pretty sure he's going to go for it.
And as we all know, if Shuyaz does pull this door skip off, since GrosHiken didn't, Shuyaz will actually be the winner of this race.
Yeah, definitely a lot of memes around that. You know, if you don't do door skip, it's not valid. Door skip saves, 2 minutes. All those good memes that we love to see.
Oh, doesn't quite get it. He might go for it again.
He's going for it
again.
He's got it.
Oh, there we go. Which is this last room. It's kind of a long one, but it'll be wrapping up 2500 M. Takes a bit of a rough death there.
Alright, he's wrapping up the 2,500 meters section and going to the final section of that, so only 30 more checkpoints to go at 38 minutes. Definitely a good pace for him.
Certainly. We'll have to see how this goes. Ooh. Having some directional pad troubles. It's certainly troubles that I can relate to.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think that there's anybody in that has played this game and hasn't, had a misdirection 1 or 2 times.
It's just the game's just misreading your input, right? That's right.
Well,
right?
I mean, here's the thing: is I never mess up, so sometimes it'll not do what I want it, and it definitely wasn't because I put in the wrong input. So,
right, exactly.
So Shuyaz there, he's not gonna, at least for that one, is gonna be skipping that flag, playing it a little bit safe. It seems like, which is probably smart for this point.
Especially on this sort of high gravity situation, yeah, it can be pretty dangerous. You can die pretty easily on basically all of these checkpoints.
Absolutely. Each checkpoint in this is, well, not each of them. Most of these checkpoints are pretty difficult, so you can lose up to 10 seconds depending on each one of them if you try to skip a checkpoint there. So pretty smart of him, especially if he wants to get sort of that good seeding. Granted, he's able to get to that group of 64.
Yep. Just about closing in on the end. Looking like he's not quite going to get that sub 40 time, but he's certainly making a good run of this last stretch.
He definitely is, and again, I don't remember exactly what his time was from his previous run today, but he PB'd at a 42-minute something, so he's not too far off. If he can go a clean rest of this, it takes a rough death. Commentator's curse there.
That barely looked like it hit him.
Yeah, that's how these spikes are. Hitboxes can, they're somewhat friendly, but at the same time, this jump in particular can be pretty tough.
But gets it nice with the run back. Not quite gonna go for that jump skip. Perhaps for the best.
Yeah, probably. I think he just wants to get out of this one. Doing, I don't want to say safe strats, but safer strats.
Nah, he just wants to finish.
Exactly.
And sometimes you just gotta finish.
I say that as he goes and he does skip a checkpoint. He skips checkpoint 8 to go to 7.
Honestly, that checkpoint's pretty easy to skip. So
Absolutely.
I don't blame him.
And you do have to go out of your way to get to that previous checkpoint. So that's the strategy that if you're not playing it casually, pretty much everybody uses that.
I think even if you are playing casually, you can just go ahead and skip that one.
Absolutely. And still a pretty good pace here. Talking before about PB pace, that looks like it's going to be off by a little bit. But at the same time, very good pace. His PB going into today before his previous run was a low 44, so he's still going to be able to get...
Oh, he's going to be thrashing that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely interesting to see somebody come into the competition, a big unknown, and just be able to put up some good times. Anything close to a 40-minute, that's definitely a very, very good, respectable time. As he's towards the end here.
And there he is. Time's just about coming up for shuyaz.
And that might actually have to look. That might have actually been a PB. That was a low...
We'll have to check.
Yeah, we'll have to see what that time was, because that was a very good run for both runners there. GrosHiken there with the 34.45 and 42 flat. I believe that's a PB.
Wow, congratulations to shuyaz. Congratulations to both sides. That's a very well...
That is an amazing race, especially to get 2 PBs consecutively in races. That is insane. And that might actually have to look. That might have actually been a PB. That was a low...
We'll have to check.
Yeah, we'll have to see what that time was, because that was a very good run for both runners there. GrosHiken there with the 34.45 and
well, I believe that is going to do it for us.
I believe that's a PB.
Wow, congratulations!
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to be the final.
That's a very well.
That is an amazing race, especially to get 2 PBs consecutively for this tournament. But tomorrow we've got a whole slew of races going on Speed Gaming 3 and 4. So those are going to be interesting. Got Yoshi Pro tomorrow. Got Bye-Bye versus Crobat Master. A lot of great races tomorrow as this tournament's just starting. A lot of exciting races going on.
I believe that's and if you're looking forward to, say, Fladerby or TGH playing, you will want to check in on Wednesday. But in any event, we're gonna have a lot of really nice races coming up for you throughout the rest of the week and throughout the next few weeks at that.